Welcome to Feed Your Lion. I'm Dr. L.I.O.N, and I'm here to aid you in the mastery of total health, spiritual, mental, emotional, physical, and financial. So prepare to have your wellness tank filled up with this podcast. Welcome to another episode of Feed Your Lion podcast. Today's special guest is Caleb Carpenter. I actually met Caleb, let's see, how long ago was that baseball game we went to?
It had to have been at least a month and a half, 2 months ago.
Yeah, not too long ago, but a little bit. We were at a business meeting, and this guy's got that like positive radiance that just comes out, like people are attracted to. And I was like, oh, we have to get him on the podcast. And so anyways, thank you for coming. I appreciate taking time out of your busy schedule to be with me. But Caleb runs his own business, and I'll let you kind of like delve into what you do and your background story and all that stuff.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I greatly appreciate it. I am humbled that you would even invite me to be on here. And that was a great baseball game.
It was.
I really enjoyed connecting with you. And when you said you had a podcast, I had a one-to-one with someone in BNI. I think it was last week.
Yeah.
And she said that you were actually an ER doctor.
Yes. Yeah. Before this, it's been, how long have I been out? I've been out almost 4 or 5 years now. Wow, that's a bit, yeah.
And even from me pulling up and seeing the building and everything like that, it's so interesting how like energies attract, you know. And so immediately when I met you, I knew that this is a very interesting person who has probably a great deal to teach me and share with me. So thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. And you're right about that, though. Like, I feel like when you have certain outlooks and things like that, you are going to attract that. And I think that's sometimes, like, this is completely not anything to do with your story, but I say that all the time. Like, if you're raising your own vibration and energy level a little bit and focusing more on positive, high energy things, you do attract that more. And I think you've seen that too. Like, you can attest to that as well.
Absolutely. And I just caught myself. I was going to say something that was so cliche now, but it is true. It's true. It's being, if you'll excuse me, being mindful. It's being mindful of the energy that you're putting out. And a lot of times throughout the day, throughout the week, it's tough because we have things that come up that don't meet our expectations. We have things come up that we would rather not happen. And each one of us has a decision to make about if we are going to project that onto somebody else and pass that on down the line, or if we're going to take it out on somebody. And to be honest with you, I would much rather be, I can much better accept someone who consciously makes a decision like, you know what, I don't care, everyone else is going to get this negativity, but someone who is not aware of that, there's always room for improvement for a lot of us. And I think that each person does have a decision, you know, and sometimes it takes the hard conversations with people that we care about or care about us. You know, the words of a friend are faithful. And you know, sometimes we have to have hard conversations to have that mirror. And I think that's going to play into a lot of what we talk about today. Is it's difficult sometimes to look at our own weaknesses, but it's absolutely crucial. It's very important, because if we're stuck in again, to use a cliche term, if we're stuck in a feedback loop, then we have no room to grow. We don't have anywhere to start really making progress, because we don't know where our weaknesses are that we can shore up and correct, if that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does, because really in life we're guaranteed to have pain and suffering in one form or another, right? Like,
Absolutely.
that's just a part of everybody's life. I don't care who you are, where you come from. It's a universal truth, but the thing we can control is our response. And how we choose to take that, grow with it, reflect on it, whatever it is, and learn the lessons, you know. And I think, you know, the people that tend to do a little bit better for their own heart, soul, and those of others really figure out a way to respond.
Yes, ma'am.
And you know what I mean? And that's like that reminds me too of always like Victor, whatever his name, Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor, because he talks a lot about that. And and you're, obviously it lost his whole family and
Yeah.
was in the, but out of that still he came up with a whole philosophy and psychology and everything else, and is, like world renowned for some of the lessons he taught out of that. And,
Absolutely.
so there is things that out of the darkest things you can bring that are helpful and help people grow and expand your own consciousness,
That's something that I was telling one of my employees the other day is gratitude doesn't come naturally sometimes. Sometimes it's a practiced action,
Sure.
right? So whenever something's going bad, whenever I have a flat tire or my battery dies, thinking about, there are people who have been in much worse situations. I'm very grateful to be here. I'm very grateful to have a car. I posted on my Facebook several years back. It was a picture of a bombed out building, and this father was bathing his children in this bathtub. And the caption was that someone out there would give everything they have to have what you have right now. And whenever I find myself being negative or getting into that spiral where it's all about me, it always helps to take a step back and really look at what I've been blessed with. And what I tell people a lot of times is that is a practiced action.
100%.
That's just like anything else. And it develops into a habit. And the longer you do that, the more it becomes a part of you. So
That's right.
I don't buy into the notion that, well, I'm just a negative person. No, you're choosing.
That's your practice.
You're
It's your
choosing,
daily habit.
You're choosing that. And if you want to choose that, that's fine.
Yep.
That's for you. But whatever we sow, we're going to reap also.
Yes. Yes. No,
So.
You're right about that. And there is something to the fake it till you make it too, because
Right.
honestly, like you're practicing, being happy, being positive. And you're right. After you do that so long, you have new neural pathways that are established. And before long, you're not faking it anymore, because you have established that new pattern over like repetition and conscious awareness of it, and it's just like what you're saying. And I don't think people realize, I think there's a lot of like victim mentality.
Absolutely.
But you're not a victim. You do
Right.
have the power to change like your circumstances, your awareness, how you project yourself. Those things can all be changed.
And you're absolutely correct. Fundamentally, they underestimate the power and strength that they have.
100%.
You have, whenever I run marathons, or whenever we'll go into some of that, or whenever I've run some of the 50 milers, 50K, 100 milers, people always, sometimes they tell me, I could never do that. And a lot of times I'll tell them, I'm like, yes, you could.
Yes.
Yes, you could. And that's the type of energy I try, believing in people,
Yes.
having an abundant mentality. Because again, all this stuff is true, but when we constantly, and when I say true, it's stuff that you see on a lot of podcasts, you see on a lot of social media these days, and a lot of people have this tendency to be like, oh, that's cliched, it's trite, it doesn't mean anything. I disagree.
Yeah.
I think constant thinking on these things puts it into action through our interactions with other people, through things like this, like what you and I are experiencing, practicing saying it to ourselves, conversating. And one of my favorite quotes, and I don't know if it was Eleanor Roosevelt or whoever, but I see it all the time.
Yeah.
And it says something to the effect of, small people talk about other people. Average people talk about events. Great people talk about ideas. Because from ideas, fundamentally, is where all those things flow from. It's gonna influence the type of events we put on. It's gonna influence our interactions and the type of people that we surround ourselves with. You know.
No, I actually just posted something on Facebook, and it reminds me of a similar like train of thought, but it's the fable of the tiger and the donkey and the lion. Have you heard that?
I don't think I have.
Okay, so basically there is a tiger and a donkey, and the donkey is insisting that the grass is blue. And the tiger is irritated by this and is like, no, clearly the grass is green. But this goes on and on and on, and the donkey's more and more insistent about the color of the grass being blue. So finally they decide to have an arbitrator. So they take it to the king lion, and the donkey, gets there first and says, Mr. Lion, this tiger is insisting that the grass is green, but I know it's blue. And the lion says, well, if that's what you think, that's, what it is, or whatever,
Right.
And so he says, will you please punish the tiger for arguing with me about this? So he tells the tiger he has to remain silent for 3 days. So after the whole ordeal, the tiger goes back to the lion and says, why are you punishing me for this? You know the grass is green as well as I do. And he says, yes, but you spent time arguing with a fool. And you are a majestic, intelligent creature, and you wasted time arguing with a fool, instead of just, letting it go. So it was basically like intelligent people know just to not waste energy there and spend it on more important things. But I feel like that's kind of...
I love that.
Right? Like, I think
love
that's a
that.
good... Because there's a lot of time, especially in, like, the political and everything else, people waste so much time arguing with each other in these ridiculous conversations. And what's the point? Is it
Right.
helping? If it doesn't help you grow, if it doesn't help you improve, like, why waste your time if it's negative about somebody else? Like, and I'm not saying I'm perfect. Obviously, we all, like, have our... But, like... I'm really trying to work on that, like just watching like how you speak and being like impeccable with that, and watching, talking about other people, talking about trivial things that don't really matter,
Absolutely.
But anyways, so it
Yeah.
kind of reminds me of that.
One of my favorite poems is by, oh my God, it just escaped me. It's called "If" by I cannot remember his name right now. It'll definitely come to me.
Yeah.
But he's basically talking about what it takes to be a man to his son. And there are several, I'm paraphrasing, but there are several key phrases in there saying, if you can be hated and not give in to hate, right? If you can be lied about but not deal in lies. And that's one of the hardest things to do.
Yeah.
Especially, is to react in kind. And that goes back to what you were saying about really being intentional.
Yeah.
Checking our motivations.
Yes.
Why am I doing this? And again, one of my employees, I love it when my employees allow me to invest in them whenever I'm able to talk about that, because it's amazing seeing the confidence that grows with someone being able to break out of things that are just totally debilitating, some of the trauma that they've grown up with, because just simply they've never had anyone show them that there's a better, positive way to live. And it's a beautiful thing. And one of my employees said the other day, they said, Caleb, you're always asking why. I was asking why, right? And I was like, well, yeah. Number one, because I want to keep that childlike curiosity.
Sure.
It's very, very important. And number two is I want to make sure that we understand the reasons for why we're doing things, and that we're not just blindly following along because that's comfortable to us.
Yeah.
That's my own body. That's my own mind trying to make things easier for me. I want to not be selfish like that. So I have to ask the hard questions.
Yeah.
Like, why are we doing this? Why am I doing this? Am I doing this to get back at somebody else? Or am I doing this to absorb that negativity, reprocess it, and put out positivity out there? And I think that takes, number one, that takes someone who's been through, as we all have, a significant amount of trauma and damage and pain, and come out the other side alive. But number two, someone who makes the conscious decision to take all of that and use it for good, to take that pain, that suffering, that anger, the drug abuse, whatever someone has been struggling with, to take it. And I had I've been very blessed to have a lot of great mentors, especially down in Arkansas. Shout out to the School of Man, phenomenal guys, and I'll be referencing several of them here. But there was a gentleman, Newland, Brother Newland, tremendous man, and he explained it to me perfectly,
Yeah.
that those things that energize us,
Mm-hmm.
right, they can be used for good or bad.
Yeah.
An atomic bomb can be used for incredible destruction, but that same thing that makes it incredibly destructive can also be used to power an entire city,
Right.
through nuclear fission. So,
Right.
and again, it's the conscious decision about what to use that for. And we've all have unique circumstances. We all come from original backgrounds, and we all are our own, each individual, unique people. You're going to be able to spread light and positivity to someone that I would never be able to reach, just due to your mindset and where you've been. And I would really that's what I try to encourage people with all the time.
100%.
We do have a choice, you know?
So I want to know, because you've referenced this a few times, but you've come out of a lot of stuff. Like,
Yes, ma'am.
I want to hear, like, how did you get to this point? Like, kind of, I want to know, like, the story from the background, like what brought you to the point you're at now, because now you're at this point, you have a lot of, like, wisdom and things to share, but, like, it wasn't always like that, same thing for me, but like, I want to know exactly, like, how you got to where you're at, how you even got to Kentucky, like, because you,
Yeah.
like you said, you weren't from here originally, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
So I'll start at the beginning where it really all started, and I apologize if I get emotional. I didn't bring any Kleenexes
We
or
love it.
anything
We can
like
find
that.
a tissue around here. It'll be fine.
But I graduated college in 2015, Pensacola Christian College in Pensacola, Florida. I graduated with a double major in management and marketing in business. And around the time I was a senior, my dad was diagnosed with multiple myeloma, bone cancer, and he was doing fine, working through it. Typically, the diagnosis for multiple myeloma is, it can depend on how aggressive it is. Someone can make it a year, some other people can make it 3 or 4 years. He eventually made it 4.5 years. And I was working up in Northwest Arkansas in the Fayetteville area for about 3 months after I graduated college. And then my dad started to get worse, right? And so I made the decision to pack up everything and move down there and be with him. And a lot of things were a mess, about to get the house foreclosed on and things like that.
Yeah.
And really just took a vested interest in taking care of him, which doesn't even come close to how much he took care of me when I was a kid. And I know a lot of people would say this, but the man was a saint. I mean, I am not exaggerating when I say that there is not a single time that I saw this man act with malicious intent towards a single person. I'm sure he made mistakes, but there were a lot of ones that I didn't see him, because he was just such a loving, kind, passionate man. I tell people all the time, if I could be half the man he was, I will have accomplished something in life.
Yeah.
And so I took care of him for 4.5 years. I have a younger sister, and she joined the National Guard. She came back regularly and helped with him. And I tell people that there's a price to pay for everything, right? And I'm not going to bash people or anything like that for putting their parents in nursing homes. All of us have to make our own decisions. But I can understand partly why, because it's very difficult.
It's exhausting.
When I look back on it now, I don't regret a single second of it. I enjoy all the moments, all the times I had with him, but I didn't take into account the effect it would truly have on me, watching this man struggle, being there with him, but also, our parents, if we were in good environments, for the most part, our parents are beacons of strength. They're the pillars. I mean, we depend on them. They're not perfect, but they took care of us.
Yeah.
And to watch that start to slip away really puts the fragility of life into perspective. And watching him, because when you beat multiple myeloma bone cancer back, it comes back more aggressively. And watching him go back again and again and again, I definitely learned my work ethic from him, but he never gave up. Never. Not in hospice. And I got to tell you, he never once gave up. And it was absolutely, there were some very, very powerful moments. That we could spend an entire episode talking about
that.
my moments with him. But when it came to the end, I was fortunate enough to watch the entire process, right? And so had a daughter 6 months before he passed. So he was able to be a granddad for 6 months, and loved her. And I really was glad to be able to. I was glad he was able to have that gift. And Meredith's mother helped him, helped me and him with that process during that time. And when it came to the end, he experienced, and I'm just revisiting it in my mind right now, the surge at the end. He loved KFC, and a day before he passed, he ate some KFC and he couldn't keep it down. And I had to set up there with him television, things like that. We were watching Andy Griffith, and really spending those last 2 weeks with him. And then the next morning, July 3rd, 2019, at 9 o'clock in the morning, I was holding his hand and I watched him breathe his last breath. And that was a very sobering thing for me.
Yeah.
And so the person you're seeing now, before my dad, I'm not the same person, never will be. But I mean, I was an extrovert.
Yeah.
I was happy-go-lucky, upbeat, talk with people and stuff like that. After my dad passed away, something fundamentally changed in me. And I know for a fact that multiple studies have been done that show there can be drastic physiological changes, mental changes, emotional, whenever someone, because that's one of the top 3 traumatic experiences that someone can experience and endure. I think it's the death of a loved one, divorce, and losing a job or something like that. And I became very different. I experienced things I hadn't experienced before. So talking about the decisions, right? I always thought depression, stuff like that, that's weak.
Right.
That's weak, I can push past that, Mr. Marathon man. I can push past that. Nothing can.
Yeah.
Amazing. I could not push past it. I mean, there are months where I don't remember anything.
Yeah.
And anxiety, there was like a year where I didn't go into the grocery store. And there would be months where I wouldn't smile.
Yeah.
And in that house that we had scrapped and saved for 2 years, living in downtown Little Rock, just being there, I didn't know how to process these emotions.
Yeah.
And I became so angry. I became such an angry person. And we all turn to things to try to escape the unbelievable pain that we experience sometimes, right? Whether it be alcohol, whether it be drugs, whether it be any number of things.
Yeah.
What felt comfortable and what comforted me was anger. And I just became a very angry person. And there would be just months where I wouldn't smile, no laughter. And sometimes not even my kids. So my son was born, he was a COVID baby, and he was born in May 2020. He just turned 4 this year, and my daughter's 5. And it got worse.
Yeah.
Right? Because I refused to make the correct choices to try to rehabilitate myself. And it was about 7-8 months after he passed away, I was really struggling. And I had worked for a gentleman before, Paul Wilson, and he recommended School of Man.
Yeah.
And School of Man is an organization down in Little Rock, Arkansas. They have members worldwide. It's an international organization that's focused on making men better leaders, fathers, husbands, brothers, and really makes a truly tremendous impact in the communities where they're located in, and definitely saved my life.
Yeah.
As you'll see moving forward in the conversation, tremendous individuals, very
Yeah.
high caliber men who are not afraid to have tough conversations,
Yeah.
who are truly invested in not accepting the excuses that we make. And I would not be here without them. A lot of law enforcement and veterans there. They have what's called crucibles, which is modeled after certain aspects of Navy SEAL training and other special forces training. They have guys from the airborne come down a couple of times a year. And so I'm a part of class 006. And when I mean to tell you that there is nothing that bonds and heals a man better than having something to fight for, being with a group of men who have a similar vision towards self-improvement, who are looking out for each other, and most importantly, are keeping each other accountable.
Sure.
And through them, I was really able to identify and understand, it wasn't until much later, why I was so angry. Again, going back to the why.
Yeah.
I wasn't angry at God. I wasn't angry at my dad. I wasn't angry at anybody else. I was most angry at the loss of purpose. See, very few times in life is there such a crystalline, pure picture. I was to take care of this man, just like I'm to take care of my children. That gave me purpose. That became my identity. I had no concept of what that would be like after he passed away. I had no idea how to handle that. And so I was lost. I was apathetic, which are total opposite ways to how I've always lived.
How long did it take you after that to identify that? Because that's like a really that's an insightful, I know what I was, how long after this
Oh my goodness. 2 months. I mean, not 2 months, 2 years.
Really?
Easily. And multiple crucibles where there were, we would go, 40, 50, 60 hours, just kind of modeling after, some of the stuff that the Marines do, the SEALs, the first 2.5 days of buds, but really not just trying to teach each man that in your darkest moments, are you just focusing on yourself, or do you have the strength, the ability to lift your eyes up and see what your fellow man needs, to see how you can help him on log PT and things like that. And so that leads me into my next realization. I thought that I was making progress, but a lot of times coming out of something so deep, it just happens in stages. And I would wrestle with just a lot of things, a lot of anger, bitterness, and eventually it reached a head to where, there were issues that came to light, and it was on me. And I've never really had a problem accepting responsibility for my actions, but that can also be a two-edged sword, right? Yeah. It can be all to the other extreme, and a lot of times I would go to that other extreme where it's just, just beat myself down, and that doesn't accomplish anything either. And so it eventually reached a point to where I just did not want to be here anymore, right? I wanted to be, I wanted to take the easy way out. I wanted to be in heaven with my dad, and I wanted to not be here anymore because it was just too difficult. And it's the only time I've really ever given up in my recollection. I'll never go, I'll never quit. I'll never ring the bell. You know. But I quit, and I had found some of my dad's morphine pills, and I had taken some painkillers, and I took about 10 morphine pills, and I took about 28, 29 painkillers. Wow. And I tried to, and I tell people, if someone says, they're gonna end things, sometimes it's for attention, but if someone has a plan, that's when you really need to start taking action and really get this person to realize how many people will be affected by such an erroneous decision. Yeah. And so, I parked my truck down there. I turned my phone off. I sent my goodbye texts. I sent people money, and then I took them, and I woke up, and I was just covered in, filth. And I woke up at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I was still here, tremendous pain in my stomach. And what had happened was I took so many that my body immediately just rejected them, and I threw everything back up. And I called my sister, and I called Cole Rogers, and they came and got me. And whenever someone's going through something really bad, it can cause isolation, right? I got this. I can't let anybody know. I have to keep up the facade, right? I can't let anybody know what I'm going through, because then they'll think less of me. Which no man is an island unto himself.
Right.
I mean, that's where, especially with men, that's where a lot of tragic things happen. So, and this is where I say I wouldn't be here without that strong community.
Yeah.
Right. So it's given me so much more empathy, so much more compassion for, I think I was just, I think the young have a difficulty with empathy because they lack experience. Things become so much more real when you've gone through it, and it makes you ask such more insightful questions and really be able to connect with people better, because you've been like, wow. So I would see, homeless people on the street, and I think I would be just like a lot of other people. I'd be like, what's this person's problem?
Yeah.
Get a job.
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I'm not excusing. We all make our own decision. I'm not getting into all that. But what I am saying is that I saw with new eyes people's experiences.
Yeah.
What if this person lost a child? What if they've gone through some unimaginable things when they were kids?
Yeah.
So I'm not saying, obviously, I don't even know what the answers to all that stuff is, but what I am saying, that's something that has improved my own life and helped me be a light and a positive influence on people, is just being empathetic and understanding and taking a second to realize that it's not about me. It's about other people. And so, I without that strong community, I wouldn't have known what to do. So they took me to UAMS, and this goes back to your parable about the donkey and the lion, and Zach Cox, a beast of a man. He is an absolute force to be reckoned with, and he had a conversation with me. He had a conversation with me in that hospital that was just profound. And he said, you're a lion, right? You're a lion. And have you ever seen a documentary and you see these mangy, scrawny lions on the savannah and stuff like that? And, he's just, biting everything, and he's swatting at all these flies, and he's totally worried about things that he can't control. And then you see another one, a majestic lion, full mane, full bodied, leading the pride, able to hunt, tremendous strength. And he's not swatting at flies. Right. He has his eyes on the prize. And that was such a powerful conversation with me about, I have been so unintentional for years about what I'm doing and who I'm doing it for. And why I'm doing it. And no amount of physical, because I was I was physical, getting sandy, doing all this stuff. But I was neglecting the mental, emotional, and spiritual aspects of it, which a lot of times is very difficult. So it was a combination. It was community. It was having a willingness to put myself through physical pain, and then also being willing to make the tough decisions, because I could have walked out of UAMS there, but I didn't. I stayed because some part of me realized that this is what I needed. So I was on UAMS suicide watch for 24 hours, and then I went to a mental facility. They took me to a mental facility in Benton, Arkansas, and I was there for 5 days. Yeah. And this is another part of my journey where it's like different chambers in your brain being opened up, being unlocked, and you get frustrated with yourself because you think, why couldn't I think of this before? Well, because we weren't ready, and we're all ready at different times. And I read Genesis through Ecclesiastes. My faith has always been very important to me, and I have my parents to thank for that. And it's always been a strong foundation, and it's guided me in a lot of circumstances and instances in my life where I could have taken some wrong paths, and it could have ended up very badly for me. The biggest thing that I learned, and the one thing that I remember from there, first of all, is in the group sessions, I was able to talk about my dad at length without just becoming a complete puddle of emotion. I mean, you can ask anybody. I could not even think about the man without just absolutely breaking down. And that was very helpful for me to talk with other people about him. I read a great book on grief one time. It was called The Knock at the Door, and it was written by 3 Gold Star women. It was part of the required reading for my class at School of Man. And one of the widows said, grief never goes away. It just changes, right? So all those years I was making my grief about myself, what I'm feeling, right? Now I still have a tremendous amount of grief from my dad. But from the things I've learned, I'm able to not make it about me. I'm able to use those experiences and carry on his legacy and his character and have that benefit other people. And the second part of what truly changed my perspective on so many things was the prophet Samuel's mother. Prophet Samuel was one of the founding prophets of Israel, one of the most influential. He's the one that found David. He's the one that tried to guide Saul, all these things. But his mother was married to a priest and prophet before, and she was barren, right? And so back in those times, the other wife was having babies, and Hannah couldn't. And so she cried out to God. She was like, God, give me a son. I'll give him back to you, the Nazirite vow. And she kept her promise. And that was such a powerful realization for me because God told me, because I was trying to control everything. As my kids, I lost my dad. I can't lose my kids. I have to control everything. I can't lose this. I can't lose that. And we have such a white knuckled grip on things sometimes. And a lot of times God will have to pry our fingers off of what we're holding on to, and sometimes he's going to have to break them, And God told me, he said, those kids aren't yours. They're mine. As a matter of fact, everything you have is mine, including you, including your dad. Okay? I took him with me. His time was up here. Okay? Now I want you to live for me. I want you to let go and let me. Not saying it was an instantaneous change, because after I left the mental facility, my kids with their mother, she moved back home up to West Virginia, and that's why I'm up here. But I was down in Arkansas for an entire year by myself. I would come up once a month to visit my kids. And it was not all roses and sunshine after I got out. I mean, I had to declare bankruptcy. I almost lost my house. There were so many nights and so many days where I was in that house. It was just quiet. Where once there was a little pitter-patter of feet. And yeah, things were tough, but I always had my children. I could be with them. I could use them as my escape.
Nothing.
There was no escape here. I was forced to sit down and wrestle with the personal growth and development that would be required in order for me to come up here and endure honestly, it's been very difficult up here. There have been a lot of things that have happened up here, both good and bad. But I think the opportunity for me to come up here was only made after it was decided that I was ready.
Yeah.
And that's such, I think that's such an important concept. And so, yeah, I sold my house down there whenever the interest rates were going up. People were going just absolutely bonkers, you know. And I moved up here, and I was working for a gym as a personal trainer.
Yeah.
And I cleaned the gym one day, and the owner came in. He was like, "This is pretty clean. What do you think about cleaning the other places?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I tried a few entrepreneurial businesses down in Arkansas during COVID. I made some mobile gym equipment for CrossFit gyms and things like that for that were doing stuff outside, like A-frame pull-up bars that were movable with wheels on them and stuff like that. So I was familiar with the concept of creating a business, and but I just had no idea. So I built it up, the cleaning business, for about a year and a half, 2 years, and it's just really started taking off this past year. And so I stepped away from the fitness side of things. And it's really just morphed into some amazing things for me to be able to hire people, be an influence, a positive influence on the community, to doing commercial, janitorial services for companies, and also do painting and some other small general contracting stuff as well.
Yeah.
And it has been, it's been a tremendous journey, to say the least. But to round out the story, the only way it could have happened is understanding what I can control and what I can't control. And again, it's said so many times that it becomes like but it's so true, because I've used this analogy before. The things we have and that we love the most in our lives are so delicate. They're so fragile.
Nothing lasts.
And it's like a butterfly in your hand.
Yeah.
Comes lights on your hand. Well, I want to keep this butterfly. It's beautiful. Close it. It's going to die. It's going to get wounded. But if you live with purpose, with intentionality, with positivity for others, you're going to be sweet to the taste. You're going to be sweet to the touch. And you won't have to hold on.
Yeah.
It'll come back.
Yeah.
Because it won't want to be anywhere else.
Right.
That is what brought me up here to my children, is that power, that belief, that faith. It's what has allowed this business to grow into a life of its own. And it has nothing to do with me. It has to do with others. And just such an incredible concept that I think would just benefit people so tremendously is, that hatred and anger and bitterness. And trust me, I felt it. Sometimes I still do feel it, but to sit back and reflect on all that, and like you've allowed me to do, it's pretty amazing, but for the grace of God.
Well, you brought that up, like the attachments, and everybody has them.
Absolutely.
But I was literally just having a conversation earlier today about, these things, we spend all these time erecting these buildings or these houses, or even we were talking about the sign project out there. It's taken 8.5 years, and they're doing a World War II memorial just down the street, which is really cool, But all of these things can just be as easily destroyed. All that time, energy, effort, just gone, whether it's a natural disaster or a loss of somebody or for whatever reason, we have no control over any of it. And you're right, we hold on to these things so much, and it's so ingrained in our identity and who we are. And then it's like you said, you're the brokenness when you lose something like that. You know what I mean? If you don't have that true understanding of, no, this was never mine to begin with. None of it is. I don't, you know what I mean? I'm just, And I don't know, it's interesting that you said that because it's like a full circle. And I was literally just having this conversation today because nothing's forever. You know what I mean? We live on a like fleeting, you know,
Absolutely.
and it's just, you think about that and it does give you that realization that like, wow, like value things in the present, like take the time, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yes, ma'am.
learning not to hold on too tightly to anything because you don't own it, you know.
There's another great verse in that poem, and I still cannot remember the name of the author. It's driving me up the wall. But there's another part in there that says,
Is it if? Is that what you said?
It's if.
I can
Yeah.
look it up.
If you can
I
look
can
it up.
Look it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's if poem. And there's another verse in there that says, if you can risk it all on one turn of pitch and toss, if you can treat triumph and disaster and treat both of those imposters the same, and just really having some.
It's Rudyard Kipling.
Rudyard Kipling, gotcha.
Is that
Perfect.
it?
I am
okay,
so.
I'll read it real quick. If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. If you trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. If you can wait and not be tired by waiting, or being lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, and yet don't look too good nor talk too wise. If you can dream and not make dreams your masters, if you can think and not make thoughts your aim, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truth you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build 'em and worn out tools. If you can make one heap of all your winnings and risk it all, one turn of pitch and toss, and lose and start again at your beginnings and never breathe a word about your loss. If you can force your heart and nerve and sinew to serve you turn long or after they are gone, and so hold on when there is nothing in you except the will which says to hold on. If you can talk with crowds and keep your virtue, or walk with kings nor lose the common touch, if neither foes nor loving friends can hurt you, if all men count with you but none too much, if you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, yours is the earth and everything that's in it, and which is more, you'll be a man, my son. That's cool. I've never heard that before.
That is a tremendous poem.
I like that.
I share that with people as much as I possibly can.
I love that.
And again, you know, this business that I've had the fortune of, managing and building, if it were to be gone tomorrow, I would have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
And is when people lose that perspective, when things go really south. But it's also such a tremendous amount of freedom. And the reason I say that is because my happiness, my joy, my contentment, my ability to persevere doesn't depend on anything outside of my control. It doesn't depend on the economy. It doesn't depend on, and that's been proven to me by coming up here and being able to start something from literally scratch. And if you were to take it all away tomorrow, if you were to put me under a bridge tomorrow, I know for a fact that I could build something else again.
Yep.
Because I believe in that inherent value that I'm going to bring into making other people's lives better.
Yeah.
And using my strength for good, using my perseverance, using the endurance that I've been given for the betterment of my fellow man. And broadly, it's such a simple concept, and there's some great books I would recommend. The Go-Giver, Go-Giver Leader, a lot of great, tremendous principles in those books. But at the end of the day, it's a very difficult thing to mentally every day be able to say, okay,
That's, I was like reading something about like a lot of people can fail in things because of their fears of those things. So like we've been talking about fear of poverty.
Right.
Like people hold on to things so much because they're afraid that they might not be able to do it again, just like what you were saying. But that fear actually holds them back from really being at their true potential.
Yes.
And so, like, just being like, okay, like, I've got to sit with that and, like, be okay with whatever happens, like what you're talking about. And you've that is a very, I think that's almost like a skill and a practiced art too, because it's a courageous act. Like, it's a courageous act to be able to say, like, okay, despite what happens, wherever I'm starting at, I don't think there is a lot of people who could honestly say fully and mean it, like, hey, I could start from scratch again. And I question myself on that all the time. Like, if I lose everything I built and worked for years, like, and honestly, at this point, like, I feel like pretty good about saying I'll be all right. You know what I mean? But, like, I think that takes a lot of, like, inner work.
It does.
To be able to do that. And I don't know, to me, I think that's why a lot of people, like, struggle and don't really come out of that, because to do that work, like you're talking about that year that you sat at your house, like, that is not fun. Nobody, like, wants to go through that trial by fire of, like, sitting in their stuff and dealing with it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard work.
Absolutely.
And I don't know, for me personally, I think that's where a lot of people, they don't want to address those things.
Yeah.
We find ways to fill it, distractions and things that are...
It's the same thing as in the gym physically. Our bodies are naturally going to try to find the easy way out. And it takes a conscious effort to say, no, this is the standard. And I am not only going to maintain the standard, I'm going to be the standard. Yeah. And there's another great book called Freedom from Fear. I think it won the Pulitzer Prize in 1999. I can't remember the author's name, but it's a phenomenal book. And that freedom from fear is what allows us to live in a way that we can benefit others, because here's how it works, right? And some people may disagree on me with this, but fundamentally, I believe I'm nothing, right? Because I'm nothing, it allows me to be everything. For if I were to think that I am something when I am actually nothing, the fear of losing that which makes me something would cause me to act in self-preservation. When I know I'm nothing, I have the freedom to be everything, to be everything to realize my potential, to be everything for this one person who needs my mentorship, my guidance. And so it really requires, and obviously not saying to diminish our self-worth and our self-care, right? We all know the analogy of putting your own oxygen mask on first. Yeah. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm saying that after I've learned all those fundamental principles, after I really worked on myself, right? It's kind of like when someone becomes a master of something, and by no means am I saying like I'm a master of anything, but it's when a professor truly becomes a master of his subject, the complexity diminishes, and he's able to simplify it in the most basic terms. So you work all these years, you work all these decades, and all these complex, and then all of a sudden the light bulb goes off, and like, right. So I think the universe and life is funny like that. I think it really brings a new meaning to the some of the verses that come to mind about the weak confounding the strong. And
well, it's a surrender to our own like humanity and our own limitations.
Yes.
And in that
absolutely
you receive strength, right? It's the same. And even like I think the concepts of like fear in general and like what we've been talking about are so important, because you see it everywhere. Even like COVID is like the biggest thing that like pops in my head right now. There was so much fear mongering that stirred up. Fear did a lot more damage, I think, than an actual virus did.
Yes.
And I'm saying that from a physician standpoint. When you look at COVID, was only just slightly more virulent than flu. People die every year of flu. Yeah. COVID was just slightly more virulent, not much. But this confounded fear, which is scientifically shown, I mean, I was just listening to this too, and like it shuts down your immunity, it shuts down your process, like, and people just, they have blown this thing into something huge. The government had done it. The news had done it. You see the news do it all the time, which is why I'm like, just stay away from the news. But,
right.
But, like, but if you're not allowing that to like take hold, like your power is so much bigger. You know what I mean?
I
Like
agree.
it's so much, and I hope that people can really hear that, because I think it's such an important thing. Like I think the concepts you're talking about are so vital to really living life fully.
Absolutely.
And I really do appreciate that. Like,
Yeah.
I want to go real quick into the physical, because you've done a lot. I mean, you were talking about you're a trainer. Like, have you always loved like fitness stuff? Like, because I mean, I like fitness too. So I
Yeah.
was just like, is that always been a part of your life, or did you?
Well, so I went to a smaller Christian school when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And we had things like basketball and volleyball
Yeah.
and things. So I've always been active.
Yeah.
But what really started that journey, I believe, was when I saw my principal, Scott Scora, who I'm still best friends with to this day, a phenomenal influence in my life. And again, I was very, very fortunate to be surrounded by very strong men,
Yeah.
capable men who were principled, who taught me how to be the standard and how to conduct myself. And I still made a ton of mistakes. And
Yeah.
I think without them, I would be in a much worse position today. And so I saw him running around the property. I said, him and my friend Chris, we were like, my friend, we went out there and we said, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm training for a marathon." And I think I was like 16 or 17 at the time. He said, "Well, let us," we were just,
Yeah.
just being goofy and stupid. So, but it really turned into a real brotherhood, a real camaraderie. And it taught me so many incredible lessons about persevering through pain, not giving up, not quitting at such a formative stage in my life.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for that experience of I'm tired, I'm hungry, I don't want to do this. Why am I doing this? What is the point of this? But pushing past that in order to reach the objective is just resilience.
Yes.
And if there's one main gift I can give to my children or to anybody that I have the pleasure or the fortune of mentoring, is resilience. You're going to have people who are going to stomp on your ideas. You're going to have social obstacles. You're going to have physical limitations. You're going to find out that things weren't the way you thought they were, and you're going to have to rebuild and reconstruct your views on certain things.
Yeah.
Be resilient. And so that's where it really started. And when I got into college around my sophomore year, I became friends with quite a few guys who were into the lifting scene, the weightlifting scene, right?
Yeah.
And it was such a perfect atmosphere. We had a buffet 3 times a day. We had a great environment there to grow, not only spiritually, but physically and mentally and socially as well. But that's where I really learned a lot of the weightlifting and physical concepts of, not only hypertrophy, but CrossFit, high intensity interval training, a lot of different aspects to become just a well-rounded, knowledgeable individual about what makes the body reach peak performance and become better. So, I got my certified personal training license, and off and on over the years, I've been able to work with quite a few people, quite a few body types, men, women, women who've been pregnant, older men, just really younger teenagers, really just running the entire spectrum of physicality.
Yeah.
And I went from 125 pounds soaking wet as a sophomore to 175 pounds at about 16% body fat.
Nice.
And there's no way I would have been able to do that by myself. Again, having the fortune
You had
to
a bunch of mentors.
be around people. But not only that, and I want to encourage anybody to give yourself credit too. I made the decision to not be afraid to look stupid, right?
Yeah.
Not be afraid to look like a fool.
Yeah.
And try something new, try something different. Again, stepping outside of my comfort zone, growing myself, striving constantly to be better, not accepting that natural human inclination to just huddle down and just hunker down and just be, And it really leads to a scarcity mindset. I'm just trying to preserve everything I've built. I heard a preacher say it one time. It was so funny. We're just going to get all we can all we get, and sit on the lid, buddy, and that's totally not the way to live. No. It's an abundance mentality, right? One of my biggest challenges right now is finding qualified, reliable, dependable employees.
Yeah.
Just because it's so difficult doesn't mean I'm going to give up. I have been, just like any other business owner, I've been burned multiple times. That doesn't mean that I'm going to give up. I'm still going to believe in the power of the positivity and the abundant mentality and mindset that I'm going to put out there. And I fundamentally believe that that's going to attract not only people who need my influence, but also people who are going to be energized and are going to also make me better.
Yeah.
And so that would be the selfish aspect of it. I want people around me like yourself, like the people in B&I, who have done things, who have been through trials and struggles and have built significant things that are a benefit to their community.
Yeah.
I want to be around that. And that is where I would say it is totally okay for any young person. I've had the privilege of mentoring several young people up here, and that's what especially young men, be in the Word, work, and weights, the 3 W's.
Yeah.
Any problem you have in life, those 3 things. And if you don't mind me segueing into that third one, the second or third one is work, right? The things I've been talking about are tremendously difficult to develop. I still struggle with them every day. It's a never-ending process. And I think that, again, whenever I have a new client in the gym, or whenever I have someone who is wanting to improve some aspect of their life, I try to tell them, do not underestimate the amount of sacrifice this is going to take. Not that everything has to be perfect, because you have to start somewhere. Something is always better than nothing. Mm-hmm. That is, you'll hear time and again, Jeff Bezos, any of these guys saying 99% of the time, a poor decision is better than no decision, which is why people always say, don't put it off until tomorrow.
Yes.
Do something. I don't care if it's one push-up. I don't care if it's writing something down towards that thing that you want to. I would not have built this business if I was afraid of, I learn something new every day. I have to be able to accept that there's a ton of things that I just don't know, but also being willing to confront that and be like, okay, well, I'm gonna figure it out.
Yes.
And I would tell people, who's going to change their body, who's going to change their mind, their spirituality, whatever they want to make a significant life where they've had habits and things develop over years and decades.
It doesn't get broke down right away. It takes the
doesn't.
work.
It takes a tremendous amount of sacrifice. And not that everyone has to do this, but I don't own a television. I don't have any. 100% of everything I do is dedicated. And I'm not talking about, healthy balance and stuff like that. I'm not getting into all that, but I've made the decision for my time right now. I'm in a training period where I am making a focused, conscious decision that I am working towards having that balance. I am willingly making the decision to make sacrifices because I believe that the plan will come to fruition in the future. For the purpose of building something not only that benefits people around me, but also that my kids can enjoy, that I can teach them the work ethic that was taught to me and the character development that I had the fortune to have whenever they become of working age.
When you are seeing clients in the gym and you're seeing like people in life that you're mentoring, because that's another, I mean, just as a aside before I get into this, but like, the mentor thing is huge, like, and it doesn't even have to be a person. I mean, there's so many like books on great things like you can like listen to, like, but having your head filled with like good message, like what you said, like how it impacted you at different stages, from high school and your principal to the Son of Man organization to all these things. Like, you've had people around you to like help you develop the things you have, and I think that's important. And people are scared to ask for that. They're scared to like say what they need, again, that's where those fears come in, but now I lost my train of thought about what I actually wanted to ask you. See, this is what happens. This is what happens. Okay, no. So okay. Why do you think like the biggest reason or reasons that people can't do what you've done, or like they can't develop that? Like, what do you think are like some of the biggest holdups for people? Is it like their fear of doing the work? Is it, fear in general? Is it, they just they don't care about, making
right.
that kind of an impact? What do you think it is that's like holds people back from who you've worked with in like your business, employees, in the gym, wherever?
The difference between someone who is willing to invest in themselves and someone who, at the first sign of difficulty, quits is making excuses, right? And if we go deeper into that, it's, again, a fear of pain, a fear of uncomfortability, a fear of looking stupid in the gym. But someone who is able to go within themselves and say, no matter what. I've heard several podcasts, I've heard several interviews with people who have gone through buds, with people who have built international companies from the garage. And it was a conscious decision beforehand. As a matter of fact, anybody who steps foot in the gym, they have made the decision whether they're going to continue before they even step foot in there. Yeah. Before someone even call me or email me or contact me saying, they've already made the decision. When I started weightlifting, there was nothing that was going to prevent me from accomplishing my goals.
Yeah.
Literally nothing.
Yeah.
No rain, no snow, no cold, no heat, there was no obstacle that I was not willing to hurdle. And that, again, brings into a broader concept, depending on whatever someone's faith or belief is.
Yeah.
But 100% effort. That's what I'm trying to get at. And that's what they taught us. That's what they taught us at School of Man. That's what I've learned is it may not work out exactly the way you want it to, but something will work out. Mm-hmm. Something will happen. Mm-hmm. What matters is the effort that you are putting into it. And only each person knows whether they are giving 100% of that effort.
That's true.
Only I cannot know that. Only I know if I'm putting 100, if I'm doing everything I can to be better or to accomplish my goal that I set before myself. Mm. And so I think that's where, again, a lot of people misguide their own selves is they start to see results or they start to have expectations, and it's not necessarily physically, but whenever they're trying to start a business or they're trying to start a new path in life, things aren't happening exactly the way I want them to. And again, there is something tremendous to be said about resilience, about figuring it out, about beforehand determining there is no plan B. Yep. I do not have a plan B. When I came up here, when I came up here to be with my children, there was nothing else. This was going to work.
Yeah.
Or not, and I hate to take it to these extremes, but I got to be honest with you. That's the intensity with which I live my life.
Yeah.
And I can honestly say that day by day. It's either this or death.
Yeah.
If this is the hill I will die on.
Yeah.
And I will accomplish this, or there's nothing. Yeah. I might as well wither away.
Yeah.
And now obviously
no,
taking that
I
with
get you're talking about the 100% effort. You're talking about the fact that you don't get something for nothing.
Yeah.
If you're doing something, there are sacrifices. So you have to decide what that is. You know what I mean? If you're not going to, even with the physical side. If you're not going to do that, well, the alternative still involves pain and suffering, because there's obesity, there's weight-related complications. Like you're making a choice one way or another. Again, in life, there's always pain and suffering. What are you going to suffer and have pain for? And like
Absolutely.
that's just a question, you know?
Yeah. So I think that's a great summarizing what you just asked. That's what differentiates one person from another, is the effort.
I love
the
it.
willingness to put in the effort. Unfortunately, some people never reach a point, because we do. We live in such a privileged, sanitized bubble.
It's so soft now too. Like it's so soft.
It is, and it's the byproduct. It's the byproduct of the success of America and the blessings. And so it's up to each individual to understand what it takes to have them reach their goals, and to be okay with there's no progress without pain.
Yeah.
That suffering and sacrifice are the price to be paid for the success that a person wants to achieve. And we live in such an incredibly privileged society that we have to force ourselves to do that. There are plenty of other people out there who are day to day, it's just about survival.
Yeah.
And so I think about that a lot, and remind myself of that whenever I start to think that, woe is me and stuff like that. And, I think I saw something incredible on Instagram. There are four things that cause a person to change. I can't remember what all they are, but one of them is hitting rock bottom. What is rock bottom? But someone experiencing so much pain, saying, I heard someone say one time that when they were withdrawing from heroin, cocaine, and stuff like that, they never picked up a needle again, because the withdrawal process was so unbelievably difficult that in the midst of it, they were like, I'd rather die than go through this ever again.
Yeah.
And so we make decisions in our life based on a lot of things, but fundamentally it comes, if we look in the mirror and we're disgusted with ourselves, or we're like, I never want to experience the pain of that choice ever again. And that the more we get distance from that, the easier it is to become complacent, to become just like, I can just, no, it takes constant vigilance, intentionality, purposely surrounding ourselves with people who are going to keep us accountable.
And it's so easy to slip away too, isn't it? Like it takes a lot of will to like.
And I tell people all the time, you are going to have people who are going to be negative towards you. It is a natural human tendency. I see it so many times, especially with some of the areas that I work. I have clients and accounts in. You see someone who has that glimmer of spark. They're like, whether it's myself or someone else coming in, they're like, I want what this person has. And then they start to change certain things about their life every single time. And I try to warn them beforehand, and I try to guide them and encourage them. Every single time, you're going to have people who say, what are you doing? Huh?
Because it challenges what they're comfortable with. It has nothing to do with that person.
Exactly.
But then it makes them reevaluate where they're at.
Yes.
And you're like tied your relationship, and talk about like the web of people, right? Like
Absolutely.
When you're elevating yourself, some of those ties just have to fall away. Right?
They do.
It's just not capable of. They don't want to raise up with you.
Yeah.
And it's, you got to cut that.
And you won't have to do anything. That's what I really want to.
That's true.
That's what I really want to encourage people.
Naturally falls. You're right.
The more you progress, the more it snowballs, the more power I think use a Gen Z term, the more aura, right? Yeah. Some of the ones they use, I really enjoy it, and I love it. Okay. All right. I'm here for it. Right.
I love it.
But the power with which you live your life, the more it becomes a part of you, the more you're going to repel, right? And I've experienced it several times when I came up here, when I would go to different gyms and things like that, and when I would work for a certain gym, I would come in there, I would give 100% effort, 100% effort, not assimilating, not adapting, not becoming a part of the established norms.
Yeah.
If something needed to be done, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And sometimes it worked, and then other times I get pushed out.
Yeah.
And that's okay because of my fundamental conviction in the way that I'm living. And that's what I want to tell people, that you won't have to do anything. It'll come up against you. And so many people take so much stock. And I hear it all the time. Well, you know, it might be, you know, something to look into, or, you know, that might be a small part, you know, it might, you know, but people, I see it. It's sometimes hard to put into words, but people know what they're doing. So they'll try subtle ways. And, you know, an idea, the glimmer, the beginning, the hatching, if you will, of self-improvement, of true progress in someone being committed to living a fulfilling life is so fragile in the beginning, and it can be crushed. And a lot of times the people who we thought were closest to us, they crush it. And
First ones to strike the hammer blow, right?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's just so unfortunate. And I have to be honest with you, I am on a personal mission. Every single day I make a conscious decision to go to war with negativity. I go to war with, and that's, you know, I'm a man, I'm speaking from male experience, but that is what drives a man, is when he has purpose, when he has direction, when he has commitment, when he has a mission, when he's doing difficult things.
Yeah.
There's nothing more painful to watch than a man who loses self-respect for himself, or is lost and can't find his way. And a lot of times all it takes is someone presenting something to him to build, you know.
Wow.
And so and I'll be honest with you, I get in trouble for saying this sometimes, but I may be wrong, but it's just my own personal observations, and I think the statistics back it up. You know, there are a lot of areas around here in the tri-state area where people have been in generational depressions, not only financially, spiritually, mentally,
100%.
physically, and because it gets passed down. You have you have generational. This person was taught to act this way. It's like with the multiple employees I've seen, they've never been shown. They've never been taught. They don't realize you do have a choice to be better. You don't have to accept the entitlement of other people trying to dictate how much positivity you should have in your life. You don't have to accept that. You focus inward. You get the work done, and everything else will take care of itself. It takes so much burden and pressure off of you. I don't worry about anything, nothing. I worry about am I putting forth 100% of my effort? Everything else will take care of itself. You know.
I love it. You've dropped so many truth bombs today. I love it so much. Like, seriously, no, I'm totally 100%. This is why I love you already. Even though I've only known you like a month. Like, you're just, I really I love everything that you stand for and what you're working for. And I completely
thank you.
Feel that. So
yes,
I love it.
Much love, Jodell. Much love, Jodell.
All right. Well, as we kind of wrap things up, is there anything that you wanted to touch on or say that we didn't really I feel like we got a lot of
we did
a lot of deep stuff. And I love it.
I just want to encourage you to keep up with this.
Absolutely.
Content is king, especially when it comes to the cost benefit of getting the message out to a lot of people. For it's just really beneficial. And there's someone that's going to watch this because you provided the medium, you provided the channel, the opportunity for them to watch it, even if it's just one person who's going to watch this. And not because it has anything to do with me, but because they hear the message of what the experience teaches.
Yes.
And it might just change their lives. It might just change their lives.
100%.
And their families' lives for the better. And you're providing that. So I want to encourage you, please do not stop.
Absolutely.
And I will support you however I can.
I love that. And I, like Zach and I have talked about that before, but this is one thing, even with, health, whatever, this is like the thing I'm most passionate about. I like to write too, but like
Okay.
honestly, like this is like something I plan to like continue, and like getting to sit down with like solid like people like you who have that light to you. That's like that is encouraging, because
Yes.
just having these conversations and being like, wow, there's people, because I think like you're talking about this war on negativity, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's really hard to avoid, and you can see like stuff all around. So when you sit down and you like, hey, like, no, like this person is out there fighting for this, like fighting for the right things, the right, has the right attitude, the right mindset, all those things. That's encouraging. And I think it's encouraging to lots of other people, who
Yes,
are going to
ma'am.
hear it too. And I think that's how you change things, right?
Absolutely.
It starts with a conversation.
It does. 100% correct.
Well, and it's funny, you mentioned perseverance. I always end with quotes. So, and actually, my quote of the day is a perseverance quote. So, I'm going to read that. Again, guys, if you can like and subscribe to the channel so we can continue to share this stuff. But a couple things. First, it's hard to beat a person who never gives up, and that's Babe Ruth. And then, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit. And that's Aristotle. So thanks for listening, guys.
If I can add one word to that.
Add.
Mike Krzyzewski, a head coach of Duke,
Yeah.
right? One of my favorite quotes of all time. He says, success is not the end goal, the pursuit of excellence. Success is a byproduct of the pursuit of excellence.
Love that.
Love what you said.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Caleb.
Yes, ma'am.
And
Thank you, Ms.
guys,
Jodell.
we'll see y'all the next time.